So we're gonna go from one damn good guest to another damn good guest. Carl Jha, how you doing, man? You doing okay?
Good. How are you, Jamar? Always good to see you.
I am doing all right, man. It's always good to see you too, Carl. I'm glad you could join me. Um, Carl Jha, he is host Silk and Steel podcast, focused on China, surrounding regions, and their history, culture, and politics. You can follow Carl on Twitter at Carl Jha. You can follow him on his podcast at Steel Silk In, and you can subscribe and support his podcast at patreon.com, Silk and Steel. Carl has a fantastic podcast. He goes through the 5,000 years of Chinese history. I'm always jealous of that, Carl. I got to be honest with you. And I'm saying that in a positive jealousy. It is very badass to be able to say, all right, next week, I know, you have a very specific thing about what you're trying to accomplish.
Next week, I will be on the 280 BC.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, man, you're going to be doing this forever. It's like you're going to be 80. It's like, all right, I'm on.
I plan to live a long time, Jamar. I plan to live a long, long time.
No, man, it's a fantastic idea. There's a show called The Great War that does like World War I, World War II, the intervening years, and they do like week by week by week. It's such a fantastic idea. It gives people this almost encyclopedia of what has been going on over the course of time in regards to Chinese history. It's fascinating. I mean, so check Carl out. He's, just the idea in and of itself is worthy of being reviewed. Carl, there are a few things that are taking place. And you sent me this thing of the vice president of Taiwan speaking before the European Union. And people, obviously, in the way that people tend to do, were making the point of saying China is getting ready for war. That's what I got to be honest. I take what Mario Narfall with a grain of salt. Sometimes it depends on what the article is. If I can check the article and everything else.
He's a grifter. He's an ex-grifter that just posts really clickbaity stuff to get views. And I think he maybe monetize it and get money for it. It is what it is.
Yeah,
so,
right. But
there's no announcement. There's no announcement. I saw another people quote tweet him saying, "Oh, China CCP has made it clear year after year that the West is its enemy." So I asked the question: when did CCP said West is its enemy and you must be destroyed? And the guy tweeted, did a screenshot of my tweet. So I responded, yes. I am, in fact, Xi Jinping. I make the Chinese policies. I mean, people are acting really moronic nowadays on Twitter. But it is a big shift when European EU Parliament hosts a quote-unquote vice president from Taiwan, because EU Parliament is one of the three major institutions of EU, and it's the only body that actually have its people that's getting elected by EU citizens. And so them hosting this is a very deliberate act, by the way. And I suspect this is all very coordinated, because the group of EU parliamentarians that invited the so-called vice president of Taiwan to speak at EU Parliament is this group called IPAC. The IPAC is an organization supposedly of parliamentarians, mostly European, but some American as well, North American. And it's an organization co-founded by none other than Marco Rubio, our current Secretary of the State. Yes. So this Marco Rubio actually co-founded this organization before he became the Secretary of State. I don't know why Marco Rubio has been on this anti-China grift bandwagon for so long, but I suspect he's getting funded by the military-industrial complex. It's just my hunch. There must be a reason he's doing this.
Well, it could be a combination of both, right? He's an ideologue, and I mean, because he's usually a hard-on for like these Florida Cubans,
anti-communist,
who are hard-on Cuba, Venezuela, etc. But he also apparently has a hard-on for China, also.
Yeah, because like for him, it's like, okay, I'm a Gusano from a Gusano family, ran from Cuba, so I hate all communists. I hate Cuba, I hate China, right? So Yeah, so that's Marco Rubio, and this happened at a very critical juncture when EU is really getting squeezed by United States, and
Yes.
they're suffering the consequences of bearing the burden of the Ukraine war. As a result of Ukraine war, EU is getting cut off from the cheap Russian energy, and now they're being pressured by Washington to cut themselves off from their largest
China.
export market, with China, which is leading to effective deindustrialization of EU right now. A lot of German industrialists, they basically just left. They took their
Yeah.
plants and moved it to United States, because in US they still can access cheap shale gas and shale oil. And this is essentially US is cannibalizing its own European quote unquote partners to bolster its own economy. And this happened in conjunction with a Dutch seizure of a Chinese semiconductor company at the behest of Washington. These are all related. Like the case of Nexperia, what happened was in late September, the Commerce Department headed by Lutnick, or I like to call him Nutlick, because he's always swallowing Trump's balls. His Commerce Department came out with this new rule called the BIS 50%, which greatly expanded the number of Chinese semiconductor company on U.S. blacklist. So before September, there were about 1,400 Chinese semiconductors that was on U.S. entity list. And after the BIS 50% rule came out in September, that number got expanded to 20,000 Chinese semiconductor company, included all its subsidiaries. So United States, this is reporting according to CNN, by the way. So Washington official went to Netherlands, they went to Dutch and told them, hey, we know there's a Dutch company called Nexperia that's 100% owned by a Chinese parent company, Wintech. Well, good news is that we're going to put Wintech on our blacklist. So that would also affect Nexperia because it's owned by a Chinese company, unless you do something about the Chinese ownership. So in October, Dutch government seized Nexperia from its Chinese parent company, nationalized it essentially under a very dubious wartime provision, claiming for national security reasons. And this had a cascading event that caused a huge supply chain disruption in the semiconductors, because Nexperia used to be, it's a second generation spun off originally from Philips Semiconductor, a Dutch company. So what happened was Philips Semiconductor spun off his semiconductor division into NXP. And then NXP, they did a couple of things. One is they moved one of its semiconductor producing arm to China. And then later, NXP got spun off into Nexperia. So what happened was in around 2016, 2018, Nexperia was losing money. They're going bankrupt. So they're losing their balance sheet looked really bad. So in 2016, a Chinese consortium bought it. And then in 2018, the Chinese semiconductor company Wintech then bought Nexperia 100%, become 100% owner of Nexperia. But then the Chinese parent company Wintech put in billions of dollars in investment, open additional research and development centers in Netherlands, and more crucially, they found a huge market for their product. This is because of the growth of Chinese EV industry. The EVs needs a lot of semiconductors. So suddenly, Nexperia started to become a cash cow. For the first time, for a long time, they started making money under the new Chinese management by selling the semiconductors to Chinese EV makers. Now, the caveat is their headquarters, the Nexperia headquarters is in Netherlands, but the semiconductor manufacturing arm is actually in China. So the Nexperia China used to be part of NXP. It was also bought off by the Chinese parent company Wintech, and the Wintech restructured it, so made Nexperia China, a subsidiary of Nexperia Netherlands, right? So under one company. So, but it doesn't matter because everything is 100% owned by Wintech. So now Dutch government is saying, "Oh, thank you for making the company profitable again. Now I'm gonna take it. I'm gonna take your company away." And they fired the Chinese CEO, right? And locked him out of the company. So China, understandably, was very upset about this. So what happened then is the Chinese government put a ban on Nexperia, and they told the Nexperia China division that's actually making the semiconductors in China, like, look, your headquarters in Netherlands was illegally seized by Dutch government. You don't have to listen to them anymore. You are now answered directly to Wintech, and your top priority right now is to make sure you supply chips to domestic Chinese car brands, right? They get top dibs. So as for the contract, your parent company, Nexperia, signed with those European, Japanese, American car makers, well, they can wait. if those guys want semiconductor, they can come to you directly and sign contract with you. So essentially, China is freezing out the Nexperia Dutch headquarters because they don't recognize it anymore, and that this caused a huge supply chain issue in the car industry, because in the car industry now they have this whole logistic chain about just in time. So they don't actually have a huge stockpile of semiconductors lying around.
Right.
Like Germans, American car makers, they're all saying they're only weeks from running out of semiconductors because of this whole Nexperia issue. And in fact, that led to the Japanese car maker, I forgot it's Honda or Toyota. They actually shut down their Mexican plant because they ran out of the semiconductors. And this is all because the Dutch government's action, by the way. And then Xi Jinping and Trump met in Korea, and Trump says, sorry, we didn't mean it. He decided to roll back the BIS 50% rule that no longer, so Wintech, the Chinese parent company, and Nexperia, no longer going to be on the American blacklist. So that removed the whole reason the Dutch government seized Nexperia
in the first place.
So now the Dutch government is trying to say, oh, so sorry, just a misunderstanding. We're ready to hand the company back to you now, China. I mean, okay. All I can say is, first, it demonstrates that European leaders are completely spineless. They will do, when American says jump, they will say how high. In this case, instead of, they were in a between a rock and a hard place. But at least what they could have done after Washington told them they have to get rid of the Chinese ownership, they could have just at least consulted with the Chinese and say, hey, Washington is forcing us to do this. How can I work with you to minimize the damage, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then might be some understanding might be worked out. But instead, they just went ahead and nationalized a Chinese company. And that really pissed off China. And that so China says, okay, now anybody wants semiconductors, you can still get them, but you have to sign a separate contract with the Nexperia China, and you have to pay in RMB. we don't take dollars. You have to pay in RMB
our currency
to get your semiconductor in our currency, right? And everything deal in our term. Forget about these jokers in Netherlands. We don't recognize them anymore. So Dutch now realize they seize a company that has no value anymore. It has no value. So now they're saying, okay, China, we're just kidding. You can have it back now.
Is China even going to take it back at this point? I mean, do they even need it back? I mean, they've dealt with contracts from the current company.
My personal opinion, I think China should make the Dutch suffer some consequences. I mean, who do the Dutch think they are? They're not United States. China, in comes to U.S., China often handles U.S. with like velvet kid gloves, right? But Dutch, who the hell do you think you are? You think China will not slap you around? I mean, come on. And like I told you before, there's a famous Chinese idiom called "杀鸡给猴看," kill the chicken to frighten the monkey, right?
Right.
Guess what? United States is the monkey. Dutch, you are going to be the chicken. You are going to be making an example of. and right now, but this shows the whole dilemma of EU. EU has no strategic autonomy. There could have been a third pole, another pole in the multipolar world. Instead, they just slavishly attach them to Washington. And I think this is also related to the EU Parliament's invitation to the Taiwan quote-unquote vice president. Because first of all, this is through the IPAC association, which is co-founded by Marco Rubio, right? It has a very heavy Atlanticist background. And the IPAC organization, whole reason for its existence is just to be an anti-China organization in EU Parliament. And now the EU Parliament's point man for handling relationship with China came out and say, oh, actually, this does not violate our One China principle or the UN resolution 2581. The UN resolution that back in 1971 kicked out Chiang Kai-shek's regime from UN seat and give the seat to China to recognize Beijing is a sole legitimate representative of all of China. But instead, EU is the parliamentarian guy saying, well, actually, we recognize Beijing as sole representative of China, but we didn't say anything about Taiwan being part of China. That is a red line for China. That is the reddest of red line for China. I mean, what are you saying? You're going to say you support Taiwan independence now, or are you saying there's two China? But he said, no, we adhere to the one China principle, but that doesn't prevent us from having normal relationship with the politicians on Taiwan. And they actually issue EU Parliament actually issue a whole statement saying we're going to continue engagement with former and current politicians in Taiwan, to further the ties between EU and Taiwan. Now, why would EU do this? I suspect a heavy hand of Washington, because the whole aim of this antic is to sabotage the EU-China relationship. I mean, to willingly to step on the red line, the one China principle. That's a red line. Even United States is very sensitive. Like all the U.S. president even Trump keep on repeating, yeah, we abide by one China principle, blah, blah, blah. But now EU Parliament is saying, oh, we get to interpret what one China principle means. I mean, one China principle means there's one China and one Taiwan. Yeah. And that for Chinese leadership is a no. And I think that is done intentionally to sabotage the EU-China ties, because EU and China were due to have a talk on the latest talk on the free trade deal between EU and China. Washington sabotaged that before, and now they're going to sabotage it again, right? And this is why, and very sad to say, Washington plays European politicians like a fiddle, because a lot of EU politicians are essentially Washington's puppets, like von der Leyen, like Baerbock, like Callas. They're all Washington's spokeswomen in Europe. And the European leaders, they either do not have a spine, or they have been groomed from a very early age through the different Atlanticist institutions to be put in their place where they are now, to serve as a loyal puppy dogs of Washington. So this is really bad for EU and China relationship, unfortunately. I mean, China would very much like to EU have a backbone, to have a strategic autonomy. So China can deal with EU as peers, but without Washington like looming in the background. But it doesn't look like that's going to happen.
I think and this sounds bad, I think there's more of a racist reason for this. It seems that Europe has lumped itself in with America as the quote unquote white world. And I know there are different races and everything else, but for the most part, it seems like they have decided we used to be colonists. America used to be a colony. America has taken this kind of leadership role in regards to military strength and at one point economic industrial strength, even though they're a declining empire. And our lot as a failed entity, as a European Union of sorts. I mean, they're behind militarily, they're behind industrially, they're behind domestically. Their governments are going bankrupt. This is not a recipe for success in regards to a political entity in the way that the political entity is effectively operating. And so it seems like they've decided our lot is best in with the US. That's the only way we have any power in the globe. We have no hard power to speak of, not in the real sense of the term. We're getting crushed in Ukraine. And so as long as we are attached to America, we have some clout in the larger world. If America wasn't part of us, then we would not have any clout. I mean, NATO, for all intents and purposes, I mean, Europe doesn't even have its own military. Like each individual country may have a military, but there's no European military. And so it's like, how do they exert influence and power in the world? Any idiot can write a letter, or any idiot can stand up and make a speech. It's another thing to be able to affect events. China has a capability to affect events. The US has a capability to affect events. Russia has a capability to affect events. The EU does not. And so it seems that they've decided our lot, in order to have any influence in the larger global world, is to effectively attach ourselves like a tit to the ass of America and to just clinch in. They're 14% of the globe, if you add in America to it. I could be wrong, because otherwise,
no, I mean, you're not the only one who point this out, Jamar. This was pointed out by none other than Kieran Skinner, the former director of policy planning for the United States Department under the first Trump administration. She actually said it right out. She said China is a different challenge than Soviet Union ever was, because China is a non-Western, non-white nation. Yeah. And she's speaking the truth, you know. And she's a black woman, you know, like, of course she got a lot of flack for it and she got fired for
but
that.
It's
but she was speaking the truth. She said because one of her she was speaking at one of the strategic forum, whatever, and one of her co-hosts, a white woman, challenged her. So but what about United States? US is a multi-ethnic country. You know, we wouldn't say it's a white nation. But Kieran Skinner said, well, look around our circles of, you know, our colleague in the foreign department, in the foreign policy department. Look at our colleague; it's mostly white men. And the other woman, yeah, okay, you're right. But that's just common sense. This is well known. I mean, like, I think there's definitely a racial dimension to this, and you know, they're desperately afraid of being taken over by the jungle, right? They're trying to attach the precious garden to the United States. and US, please protect our garden with your powerful navy.
But how is it protecting the garden? I mean, as you point out, Germany is being deindustrialized. Britain and France were in economic turmoil. France, the government literally just collapsed, right? Like, these governments are under massive pressure. I mean, for example, I'll give you an example. Think of the amount of money that the EU is going to have to pay in tariffs. Think of the amount of weapons that the EU is being forced to buy. Think of the amount of energy that EU is now forced to buy from either third parties or from the United States, where they're paying 3 and 4 times more than what they were paying for Russian energy. It's destroying Europe. How is that protecting?
Remember what we talk about? The U.S. tells its allies in the Western Pacific, Australia, Korea, South Korea, it's like, okay, now you guys need to die for us. You know, you need to die for the glory of the American empire. For the Europeans, Trump is saying, you know what? You guys have to bear the financial burdens of carrying out the Ukraine war. You guys have to pay for it. The Ukraine war must go on, but you guys must pay for it. We're tired of paying for that shit. You guys get to carry the financial burden of doing so. And those European leaders are so deathly afraid of losing kind of the American security umbrella. They would do anything, even though all of them openly despise Trump. This not they all hate Trump. Yet whenever they come to Washington, they sit like school children in the White House surrounding the Trump, and von der Leyen acts so demure when Trump was just saying like, yeah, Europe is gonna pay. You're gonna pay through the nose for the privilege of being a member of the American empire, and then she's just like, okay, it was a great diplomatic success. America only levied like 20% tariff on us instead of 50%. So I consider this a great success. It's hopeless. It's hopeless. It's sad.
Yeah, it's so pathetic. It's a damn shame. It really is. Like it's a damn shame. I'll just say it that way. So China, just to be very clear though. So Marwal's point of China taking how did he say it? Because I want to get exactly the way he put it. China building rafts turning effectively rafts into military boats in order to go after Taiwan. That's nonsense, right? It's just Europe has defended freedom and fire.
Ferries. Yeah, the turning
ferries.
So this is actually a new development. China is they're building these like civilian transport ships that could be turned into like a military landing ship in times of war. But this is because China has the capability to do so. China has the industrial capability. They have 200 times the naval shipbuilding capability than United States. They can afford to do it. Whereas U.S. right now, even the U.S. military industrial complex is giving up on reindustrialization of America. They are talking about offsourcing, retrofitting warships to Korea and Japan because they could do it cheaper. And now there's a recent article from War on the Rocks that arguing U.S. should outsource more commercial shipbuilding to Korea and Japan. And the reason they're giving is we only have limited resources and money and shipyard. So if we you will take away from our great military buildup if we were to build commercial ship in United States. So then, in order to compete with China in this great naval race, then the best we can do is offshore all our commercial shipping building to Korea and Japan, our allies. And so all the shipyard in the United States will be dedicated to build for Pentagon. I mean, this is preposterous. The whole reason China have 200 times the shipbuilding capability is because they build everything. They build commercial shipping, so they gain the skills from building commercial ships that could be applied to build warships. And they built the economy of scale so they could build things much, much cheaper. And U.S., let's not forget, U.S. used to be the world's most dominant shipbuilder after World War II. That's how U.S. won the war through its industrial strength. That's how it defeated the Empire of Japan, because U.S. can produce tons of warships and aircraft carriers like nothing. But after the war, what happened in the 1970s is the Wall Street guys, they did their numbers. They're like, you know what? Let's outsource the commercial shipbuilding to Korea and Japan, where it's much cheaper. And then what left was protected shipyards who have dedicated government contract to build for Pentagon. So what happened is a double whammy. So on one hand, all the commercial shipbuilding is leaving United States to go to Korea and Japan. On the other hand, the remaining shipyard that has dedicated Pentagon contract, because they have guaranteed government contract, they have less incentive to innovate, to apply new technology. So they only get further left behind. So what happened now is why the U.S. commercial, the whole U.S. shipbuilding industry is in decline, because, after 40 years of offshoring, all the people that once know how to build ships, they all retired. And they haven't been able to train a new generation of people to take their place, because, those jobs are no longer here. They already outsourced to Korea and Japan. And now they want to outsource even more to Korea and Japan in order just to build warships in U.S. This is dumbest policy ever. But this is what happens when you have like Wall Street bros and finance bros and Silicon Valley tech bros running the government right now. They're literally taking over the White House, and their idea is, we don't need to actually make anything. We can just be the brain. We'll outsource actual building to other nations. We can just design it and let other people build it. But in China, they believe to do everything. they put eggs in all the basket, and so this is the difference. This is why China actually, they came from behind. They only overtook Korea and Japan in shipbuilding like very recently, in the last like 20 years or so. But they were able to, because they have a dedicated industrial policy, they have a smart industrial policy. So what happened because shipping and shipbuilding is very cyclical business. But what happened is that there will be like shortages of ships that lead to a lot of order flooding the shipyard, and then they will produce a lot of ships, and suddenly the shipping rates falling, and then the shipping company going bankrupt, and then they stop ordering ships. So during the downturn, Chinese government says, okay, don't worry, we will take care of you. Nobody's going to get laid off. You guys are now going to produce for the Chinese Navy. You are now going to produce warships, because we need to match the strength of U.S. Navy. And so, and then after China produced all this Navy, when the shipbuilding kick off to the upturn again, so okay, now we have our Navy ship. You can go back to build the commercial shipping now. I mean, that's how China does things.
This is so aggravating, Carl. Because for US, me, right, we don't do that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Like, that's just not the way we think. No. I mean, like, there's a saying, a capitalist will sell you the rope that you used to hang him. It feels like that. It's like there's certain things that you invest money into because it's vital for your country's national interests. Electricity grids, power, transportation, and yes, the military. And so the idea of, okay, instead of us paying Americans to do these jobs, we're going to send it to South Korea and Japan and let them do the jobs on our behalf because we can save money on it. It's not about saving money. Not everything is about, like if you need to get medical treatment, for example, let's say you need to get a cancer surgery, and one doctor says, hey man, I can do it for $10. And then the other guy says, well, it'll be $500, but it's going to be done right. You don't take the $10, right? You don't take that $10. I don't care what the guy tells you about how great he is.
See, Jamar, you're making a big assumption here. Like, you would actually care about what happens to your own body. But see, yes, the elite that's ruling Washington, they don't think they're of the same stock as the average American people. You know the idea that empire comes home to roost? I mean, right? Yeah. U.S. has been treating the rest of the world as kind of the cannon fodders, for like the human battery cells for their matrix, right? But now the elite is increasingly viewing average American just the same as the other third world country peons. You guys are all interchangeable. You only exist for us to extract wealth from you. And this is why U.S. government can't do industrial policy, because U.S. government is designed specifically to funnel money, get vast sum of money for the taxpayer base all the way to the top 1%. That's what it's designed to do, and it does that very well. It's not designed to do industrial policy. And U.S. government and Chinese government, they're all working very well to what they designed to do. Chinese government is designed to do industrial policy. U.S. government is designed to funnel wealth to the top 1%.
Maximize profit.
And
yeah.
And the problem, I think it's cliche to say like U.S. is going through the Latin Americanization. It's like with a small group of oligarchs ruling over the mass peons that they don't absolutely do not care about, and that's what's happening. This is what there was. The only reason, after the New Deal, or after Roosevelt, that the U.S. oligarch had to share some of the pie to the working class is because the Cold War, because they had to compete ideologically with Soviet Union. They have to win over their own working class to say, hey, don't get those silly ideas about communism or socialism. Here, have a piece of pie. Like life is still pretty good. But after Soviet Union collapsed, they see no reason to share the pie anymore. Now they want all the pie to themselves. And this is why we are heading back to the inequality level of roaring 20s, of the age of robber barons. We're returning back to that level right now. It's because there's no check and balance. They're not competing with the Soviet Union trying to win over the working class anymore. They don't care anymore.
Agreed.
And this is also the whole rationale behind their drive for AI, because the whole idea is once they have AI, they can have AI working 24/7. 24/7, no sick leaves, no, they don't need to sleep. They don't need you peons anymore. You peons you can go home. We just have robots serving us masters, living in what's that movie? Like, those people living in the sky.
Upload. Well, there's a movie called Upload on Amazon where the people are living in the like they have an AI heaven for the people, and companies got to the point.
I was thinking an older movie. There were like the common people living on Earth, and then the upper class that live like in the sky. I forgot.
Oh, Elysium.
Forget the name.
Elysium.
Yes. We're hitting right there right now. This is a vision that Silicon Valley tech bro have for the rest of us.
Yeah, I agree with you, by the way. I agree with everything you just said. 1,000% agree. Because that's the point that's why they want artificial general intelligence. Hey, I don't need that person to do, especially since many of the jobs can be done at home, or many of the jobs can be done electronically. And if you have Susan, who's a robot, who can answer phones and pretend to be a person, can redirect because she can understand language enough to do that. Then think of all the secretaries, think of all the office people, think of all these people who just lose their jobs. The truckers, same thing. Taxis, same thing. Uber drivers, same thing. If you can have a car that's automatically picks up a person, drops them off. Hell, it may even know how to go to the gas station when the gas runs low because you're just about to how that tells it time to go to the gas station. Like, all of these jobs are going to go away. Give it 20, 30 years. Mark my words. I may not be here, but Lord knows that seems to be the game plan.